Hi, I'm Rebecca Pender from Somerset, Pennsylvania, and this is my show of photography and acrylic mixed media. Um, Basically, as the title says, God's glory, God inspired. This is his show, not just mine. I hope you'll stop in and see it. It will be hanging until July the 1st, and the hours are 10 to 5, Monday through Friday, and Saturday 10 to 2, and closed on Sunday. Lost Valley Dream was created in a workshop in Santa Fe, and I was studying with Dan McBride, who is a nationally known abstract artist. And what we did, we just took and threw paint on the canvas, and then afterwards, this was put face down with wet paint in really high-grade glass sand, and then scraped back through. We just had fun with it. It was a play period, and this is what came out of it. Showers of Kunming was also the same jumping off point. But once I got home, if you can see, I added stencil, I added some glass beads, and just worked it a little bit more. But it started with the training in Santa Fe here again. Okay, two of the paintings that we're looking at now, the Sunset Spray and the Lily Pad, were done in Nancy Raynar's studio in Santa Fe. And she is the first artist that I studied with, and I flew out and I studied with her for 4 full days. And she taught me how to manipulate liquid acrylic as well as some of the different mediums that are used, like the tar gel, etc. And then this middle one, Deep Sea Kaleidoscope, that was kind of a spin-off from some of the things I was doing in the workshop with Nancy. Okay, it seems like for some reason the sea and the things in the sea keep popping up, or in the sky. And this one I started with all kinds of stencils, and then I started adding glass beads, and it just looks like high tide. The one down below, it looks like outer space, maybe a nebula exploding. And I love the color. As you can see, and you will see, color I use a lot. Up at the top is the Sea Sprite, and it's just fun. There's color, there's movement and action. The one down here, it looks like a man of war. And actually, I was trying to do a sister painting to one we'll see in just a little while that's called Creation. And it just kind of turned into kind of a man of war, and I left it that way. The next one, I watch a lot of videos about weird things, and one video I was watching was about underwater caving. And this just reminds me of what it might look like coming out of a cave back into the light. The one below it, Stormy Pond, is a very early piece, and I just started playing with the palette knife and just making real bold swipes with it, and that's what it came up with. So much of my work, I go to the canvas, it's white, and I have no idea what I'm doing. And as the show is titled, God's Glory, God Inspired, This is really his show. I just hold the brush, the palette knife, or I use my fingers. Up at the top is rainbow shoals, or rainbow coral. I can't remember the name of everything. But here again, it has a lot of color, it has a lot of texture. I use stencils, and it's a very lustrous, very bright surface on it. The one below, this is more mixed media. The part here in the center was actually pulled off my palette after it dried, and I reapplied it to this picture, and then this gold is surgical gauze, which I like to use. It's not the easiest thing in the world, but it's fun. This is another seascape, just a lot of color. There were stencils used in it. It just happened. This one, or the one clear at the top, that was done in Santa Fe also. Brought it home, and I love metallic paint and micaceous iron oxide. And I used it on that surface to bring it to life and give it highlights. This one is wavelength, and when I see this, I think of my husband. He's a ham radio operator, and he works with all kinds of wavelengths all the time, so that's kind of dedicated to him. This is one of the first paintings I ever did. It makes me think of Indian feathers, so I called it Sacred Feather. This series in here, from the pink one, pink, orange, melon, across to this metallic on the end. This is kind of like the main theme of the show, God's glory, God inspired. Up at top, that's called the Crown of Thorns. I literally painted it upside down. I never saw it. And my mentors, Hilmar and Penny, when they were looking at this, Hilmar exclaimed, my back was to him, and he said, "Oh my God." And I turned around, and there was Christ. Never saw it till that moment. Then this is a piece of photography that was done a very long time ago. It's one of the warming huts up on the cross-country ski trail. And when I was taking this picture, I love reflections, and I was taking the reflection of the trees in the 12-pane window. I never saw the bottom center. My camera metered through the whole cabin, and that is the back window. So I've always called this the window of hope, because the surrounding is so dark, but there's that one break of light in the bottom, and I couldn't have placed it any better if I had seen it. And right now, a copy of this resides at Hospice House in Somerset. Then over here, the top painting, it's called Redemption, and it's as we see our old sinful selves, and as we grow in faith and accept the Lord, we become new people. The one and the one below it is the burning bush, and I think that speaks for itself. Now, this one over here isn't as evident, but this is called Yeshua, and here's Mary, here's the baby Jesus, and here are the three wise men. And some people see it, some don't. That's one reason I don't like to title things, because everybody sees something differently. This is called Mother and Child, and actually it's the mother, the child, and the father. So it's a family portrait. I called it creation, but I should have called it Genesis because it's the water, the land, the dark, and the light. So it's like God's work in the first 6 days. This one, people see all kinds of things, but with this, I call it crucifixion because it's a lot of people. There's a dark strike up here, which you could say was the cross, and then you see the blood at the bottom. This one is one from early on, and this was fun because I used tar gel, I used stencils, and here again, my surgical gauze. And it's called Under the Boardwalk. It just makes me think of people having kind of like a party under the boardwalk, and they're gonna go out in the sun later. This is just a piece that was started. It was impromptu, and it turned into flowers. This one, I don't know why, but this has never been one of my favorites, and I don't know why, but people seem to like it. I think it's fairy firefly or something like that. But now this piece and the one above were done again with Nancy Raynar out in Santa Fe, and we were using very heavy gel, our modeling paste, and then we actually sanded it with a hand sander to give a different type of texture. And then we were using liquid acrylics, and on that material, it takes paint so differently. So those were just fun exercises, but it turned into something I liked. This is Dormancy of Krakatoa. It just reminded me of how after a volcano erupts, how when it's dormant for a long time, which Krakatoa was or is, vegetation starts to take over and reclaim. And I've always been interested in Native American, and I call this Kokopelli because to me, I see some of the forms of the Kokopellis you see in their art. Down here on the bottom, this was just kind of an experiment when it started. And it reminded me of the Southwest and some of the Native American colors. And it's called Westward Ho. The one above it is conga dancers. And if you see the close-up of it, it makes me think of the elaborate sleeves of some of the costumes that they wear. Up at the top, that all of a sudden I got interested in small shapes over top of bigger shapes. And I also used some high gloss glaze. So there's some matte areas and some shiny areas, which I think gives interest to it. This one in the middle, it just happened. We titled it, and I'm not going to give you the title because see it for what it is and see it for what you see. This one down on the bottom, my daughter named, and she called it Gallagher's Revenge. There was a comedian, I guess in the 60s or 70s, that his shtick was breaking things, and he was breaking up watermelons with, I think it was a sledgehammer. And this is what this reminded her of. And she showed me the video, and it was pretty appropriate. The one up at the top is called Livewire, I think. But it's something that it looks hot, it has energy. So it made me think that it was something electrical. The one below it is Falling, and here again it just makes me think of a landslide, a rock slide, something or someone falling. This is my black and white series. Actually, the one on the upper left, the one on the upper right, and one on the lower are actually a series. Just because of shape and size, we didn't hang them together. I just like black and white, and I've done a lot of paintings in black and white, but those were some of the first. The one down here on the bottom is called Les Mis, and one of my favorite movies is Les Mis that was done in the last several years. And it just reminds me of whenever they were barricading themselves and fighting. The one in the middle is not something, the type of style I do often, as is this one, but they turned out, and that one I call Maze, and this one is in the trenches. And here again, because of the red and the energy, it just feels like there are people blocked in trenches, and there might be water coming in the trenches. Here again, it's your perception, not mine. Over on your far left, the top painting is called Easter Parade. And whenever you see it up close, it has a lot of texture to it. The reason I called it Easter Parade is because it has so much color, and it kind of makes you think of Easter. The one below it, Study in Blues, that is the first painting I did once I started painting again. I mean, it's when I started painting about 5 years ago, it's the first time I've held a brush or a palette knife in over 50 years. So that was my first attempt. This one I started here in the middle, and it's called Wildfire. And it was back when there was so much in the news about the California fires. And that's just what it made me think of. The one up there, it's called Tutti Frutti, and I love all the colors in it and all the different shapes and the movement. Here again, I use a lot of soft modeling paste and crackle paste, which is incorporated into that painting. The one at the top is called Sweet Peas, and it just reminds me of sweet peas. Here again, the trailing, the vining, the clumps of flowers. This is called Crossroads, and it has a lot of texture. It's done somewhat in the style that I used when I was out in Santa Fe. This is just playing. That's what most of my paintings are, just playing. I start, I play, and then I refine. One here on the top is probably one of the most dismal paintings I've ever done, and it ended up being called COVID-19 because that was not a happy time in this country's life. The one below it, as I started, I realized I was seeing two columns, and I'm not even sure how I introduced the orange, but this is called First Strike, and in a way, it was one of the saddest days in our country, but in another respect, we saw our country come together like we haven't come together in a long time. So that's called First Strike. The one up here on top, that's called, I think, St. Louis Blues, but as I looked at it, I could see buildings and then the arch. And from what I understand, purple is one of the jazz colors. The one below it, it's just a twilight setting under maybe wisteria, but it's an evening painting. The one on top, as you can see, I do go to flowers once in a while, and they were just compositions for fun. There's a lot of stenciling, especially in this one. It's stenciled with with soft modeling paste, and then some with just paint. So it's just a variety of textures and colors. I like seashores. I've never been to New England, but the one at the top here reminds me of low tide, where you have the sand and some water, but it's very subdued, very muted. This one's called Icelandia, and it looks frozen. You could call it Arctic. You could call it Christmas in New England. You could call it the high plains of Montana. But it's just very cold, very icy. Most of my colors that I use are warm, but this one is definitely a lot different. This one on the bottom, my husband called it pepperoni pizza. And this actually has cork applied to it. It has soft modeling paste, very textural, and I call it, it's like meandering. It's meandering through a canyon and going out. Maybe the Red Rock area out in Arizona. The one at the top, it's called calla lilies, and it speaks for itself. It's flowers, a lot of background to show off the lilies, very bright, but very subdued in the background. This one, I was playing around, I don't know if you can see it, but I was playing around with a different kind of brush, and I ended up with a flower composition. The one at the top, it just reminds me of wild mustangs that I saw out in Arizona as we went up to Payson, which is higher up than Mesa and Phoenix. And they run, gallop, jump, and this uses a lot of crackle paste and a lot of the dark colors you see, the dark gray, that's watered down micaceous iron oxide, which I use quite a lot, although it's not evident in this show. This one, I was playing around with the colors, I like them, and it reminds me of fall. The one on the top is a volcano erupting. And actually, for those of you that worry about something turning out right or making a mistake, well, when I did this, I didn't know a lot about liquid acrylics and gloss medium. And I combined them in a very unusual way, and I got this. I think technically it'd be called a mistake, but it worked for me. And then on the top, there's a lot of stenciling, which might have the feeling of ash flying in the air. This one was just fun. It reminded me of an aerial photograph I saw of parts of New Zealand along the water, and the vibrance of the red, and then the greens and the blues, and then the washout. Here again, it's loaded with stenciling and modeling paste. So my paintings, for the most part, are very textural. Very seldom do they end up with just paint. In this area right here, a lot of times I'll work across 2 to 3 canvases, or as you see here, this was done on heavy paper. I'll work across 3 pieces at one time to create a series, although individually they all stand alone. And this series with the orange is really a lot of fun. I used a lot of metallic paint. I used a lot of stenciling. The one above it, that's basically all just brushwork which I don't do often. And then these down on the bottom, these two, they were done on paper. There's actually a third one, but it didn't make it here for some reason. But here again, I'm working across 3 pieces of paper. They can be used, hung together, or they can be hung individually. This just reminded me of a caterpillar that has a cocoon, and then it morphs into a beautiful butterfly. And I think with this, the caterpillar, the cocoon, is thinking about the next step because of all the bright colors with it. This is another 3-panel, and it was just a lot of fun color. That it makes me feel like a dragon. You can see here where there's a lot of crackle paste. There's some brushwork over it. It's just a little bit of this, a little bit of that. These two down here, I had done a good many similar to this. And here again, it's a lot of metallic paint. It's a lot of glass, medium, and heavy texture. This is one, I haven't really used a lot of found objects, but this has a lot of glass beading, and then the buttons, and then there's a lot of, I think I used the tip of my brush and took and put streaks through it. This was one of my fun pieces that I worked on with Nancy Raynor. And actually, I want to go back and read my notes to see how we created this effect. But actually, this was liquid acrylic, watered down, and I was using a straw to blow it all over the place. And I just love the vibrance and the colors. I find that with some of the liquid acrylics from Golden, they're much richer. The paint colors are always evolving. And this is some of the contemporary paints that they've developed. This one, here again, playing away, and just, it evolved into flowers again, but I think I called this one Happy and Excited or something similar to that. This is another energy piece up there that makes me think of wires and electricity and heat. Here again, it too has a lot of energy and movement in it. And what I did was, after I laid the paint, I started working with markers that are compatible with acrylic and drawing the finer lines on it just to give movement to it and to help move your eye through it. It's kind of like orchestrating a dance or choreographing a dance. This one is a 6-panel. I use a lot of imported paper, and it made me think of an iris, and there's so much rich metallic paint on this. The golds that you see, that's actually in the paper itself. The one up on top was another fun piece with a lot of metallic paint, a lot of stenciling. Actually, I also I have some little things that I can use to imprint texture instead of using a stencil. And I just love the colors, the brightness, and it's kind of serenely exciting. This is called The Eyes Have It, and I just felt like when I stepped back and looked at this, that someone was watching me, and that's how it came to be named. But real heavy with some crackle paste, some soft modeling paste, and here again, a lot of color, and I did introduce a little bit of metallic paint to give it a little bit more brightness and depth. This is called Blue Swishes. It's one of my earlier pieces, and I just started playing with a palette knife and dragging, and that's what it came out to be. This is Alpine Winter, and it's kind of like trunks of trees with snow on limbs of maybe pines. And you can see I worked through with an unusual palette knife to give it texture and movement on the bottom. There's a lot of crackle paste over here. It was just a fun piece that started out going one direction, and if I'm not mistaken, this is one of the paintings that I didn't like, and I took and covered it over and started again. Whenever you look at my photography, the photography came first. And you'll see that the signature on the photography is Sadie Beck. Now, my mother was Sarah Rebecca, and I lost her when I was a junior in high school. And my father, to get my mother's goat, would call her Sadie Beck. So in honor of my mother, who was a crafter or an artist in her own right, I signed my photography as Sadie Beck. Now, I've always been fascinated with reflections, and this was taken down south, and it goes, "Can you hear me now?" And it's a gentleman, this is a reflection off a building, and he's just standing there, and I feel like he should have a cell phone, and he's talking on it, and it's like, "Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?"
You're ready.
Another one of my passions is glass. And back when I was still doing photography, I would take pictures, detailed, like macros of glass. And this is actually a piece of Chihuly glass that is in Phipps Conservatory whenever you come into the building. And it's called Flying Fish, and Chihuly and his artistry with glass is amazing. The one below it, this was the blizzard of 2010. And this was looking down the hill, down past this, an older building in town. And there were two flags. And I called this one Patriot Winter. The one on the top is called Ascending to Blue. And this was taken down at Winterthur in, I guess, Delaware. And I was on a tour of the house, and I literally stopped, laid down on the floor, and shot my camera up to the ceiling. I just loved the colors and the lines that lead you clear up through to the top. The one down here was actually one of Penny's models on a photo shoot when I was taking classes from her, and it's called Tears of Remembrance. And this is a multi-layered photograph put together, and it just the look on her face and the droplets from the fountain, it just makes me feel like it's a woman that was meeting someone and the gentleman never showed up, and she's remembering back to that time. So this one had a little feeling behind it. The top one is, these two pieces are glissés of original photography. And I was at a car show at the Maple Festival in Meyersdale. And I looked, and there was a 58 Ford and a Ford hubcap, and the name of this, The Eternal Question, Ford or Chevy. And the one below it is the Burkholder Bridge in down in Fairhope, I think. But I've photographed all the bridges in Somerset County. They're another love of mine, the structure, the lines in the bridges themselves. And this was in, as you can see, the winter. And for me to get this shot, I climbed what I thought was plowed up snow, only to go down through it into a rock pile. This was a very painful photograph. The top picture, well, both of these pictures, I had old postcards, and I went in and worked with Photoshop to clarify them and make them more presentable. But this is the old Belmont Hotel in Somerset. It's long gone. Somerset was actually known for its hotels. It had like 8 or 10 of them. And this was became the old Penn Furniture Building. And now it is a financial advisor building. Down here, this is one of the corners, and this dark spot right here is actually another hotel that was called the Arlington, and this is the corner going up North Center towards the post office. Here again, another photograph or postcard that I revived. This one is the Patriot's Prayer, and this was a friend of mine, her name's Gwen, and she was at the National Day of Prayer. And I just loved her uplifted hands, and I took and overlaid Patriot's Prayer. This is another series, which again was worked horizontally. And after I got done with it, I went back in with a compatible marker and started adding some bold black lines just to give it some more interest. But when I work on paper, I gesso it, and then after that dries, I just use paint, sometimes palette knives, sometimes not, but it's just a series of work. This is Christmas calla lilies. I love certain shades of red and green together. There's a little palette knife work. Actually, on some of this, I used a credit card because it makes a real good way to squiggle around with paint whenever it's a small area. This is another series, and here again, it was worked horizontally. I'll take and tape 3 pieces of gessoed paper to my easel. And then what I do is I tape the size that I want it to be when it's finished. And this again, if you could see close up, this was worked with a credit card. There's a lot of stenciling on it, but I do not use any soft modeling paste, crackle paste, because it's all too heavy for a paper. Guess what? Another series on paper, worked horizontally, which stand by themselves, just bright, happy colors. That's about it. This are 3 individual pieces that I did not do as a series, just a study in color and movement. These are some of the smaller pieces I started doing. My husband always says abstract art needs to be big, but everyone doesn't have big spaces. So this one is called Melodrama. It makes me think of a watermelon and seeds. This is Riptide. This has a lot of texture paint on it, as does this. And it has metallic color, which makes me think of a shimmering sea. This is reminiscent of a bright sunset, a lot of glass beading, and just working with the same idea as the other one. This one has stenciling. It has some, I think, somewhere in there, yeah, this is imported paper. And then I just did some stenciling and drawing through the soft gel medium to get the texture. This actually is a self-portrait. I call it self-portrait herself. And it was taken in a reflecting ball that was up at the Georgian Inn in Somerset. And if you look closely, you can see my head and a camera in front of my face, and I used Photoshop. I split it and reversed it, and then added some texture. You can actually see some of the windows of the building in it, but it was just a fun piece. It's like, I never want to be in front of the camera, so I put the camera in front of my face. This is Unc. I don't know if he's still alive or not. You can actually see he has a cataract on his eye, but the amazing part of this piece of photography is it was probably taken from between 300 and 400 feet at the zoo in Pittsburgh, and I was actually using the first DSL I ever had, and it wasn't a powerful camera, but the detail came out amazing. And this was probably taken at one of the botanical gardens, and it's called Dragonfly in Amber. And you probably can't see it on the video, but there's actually a reflection of the dragonfly's wings on the water lily. It's just one of my favorites. There's a lot of dimension to it and a lot of detail. I'd like to thank the Community Arts Center of Cambria County for holding this show for me. The most important thing that I'd like to leave you is that I hope you can visit the show in person, because videos and pictures of my work really don't show up the texture and the detail. But the main thing is, this is not my show, it's God's show. And without him behind me, these would be blank, they'd be white. There would be no art. And I just thank the Lord for the talent that he has blessed me with. And I hope, if anything, I'm not really, I shouldn't say this, I guess, but I'm not really concerned if pieces sell. What I'm concerned about is for people to take time and stop and really look at what they're seeing, and to find the beautiful color in this world God's given us. So I invite you to stop down, and please leave a comment on the guest book. Thank you, and good day.